Hi, connections. Recently, I had an opportunity, technology that I recently explored was using Microsoft Fabric Service. How do I ingest and orchestrate the data into Power BI and make a Power BI dashboard? So this is a Power BI dashboard I made, which basically shows you an operational overview for New York taxi services. So here are some general details which can be viewed here. That is average trip fare, which is $13 per trip. Average total fare, which would include your other taxes and tips and stuff like that. That all comes to $15. And average trip duration, which is 20 minutes, uh, 21 minutes roughly. Apart from that, I have used, this is a very simple dashboard which I made using Power BI. Apart from that, I have also visualized locations where there is a high density of pickups. So we can observe from the data set that there are more Uber pickup requests from upstate New York rather than the downtown New York. Apart from that, I have also visualized using a pie chart the split of fare. That is what all is included in your total fare. That is fare plus your toll taxes, your tip amounts, and what percentage. So you can say like $13 is your fare that takes the most amount of your total fare. Apart from that, you can see a donut chart, which basically visualizes payment types. So based on the payment types, this donut chart is also a filter. So based on the payment type, we can see the values change here on other charts as well. So there are a total 5 payment types, and based on payment type 1, you can see that average trip fare goes to 14, total fare goes to 18, and the split of total fare also changes accordingly. So for different payment types, you can see different payment results as well. So for payment type 2, the trip fare goes to 11 and 12, and 3, so on. So these are the few things, the how I have visualized it. Apart from that, this third line graph, which I have used, basically tells us about passenger count by trip type. So there are two types of trip, which were made in the data set or which were mentioned in the data set. Or there were basically two categories, and it is split into the payment types. So sometimes there might be just one, two, and payment type ones and payment type two, and the visualizations are done accordingly. Next, I'll show you how I ingested data from Microsoft Fabric Service. So as I told you before, like how I use Microsoft Fabric Service on Azure platform. So this is where I started my work. I had to create my workspace. I named it my workspace. And in order to ingest data, I needed to create an environment, basically a lakehouse. And the lakehouse I created is called Max. And as I told you about the data set, it's a publicly available data set, New York taxi operation, which is provided by Microsoft Azure as a public data set. So what I basically did is pull that public data set into my personal workspace Lakehouse environment here. So you can see a table preview of the data set over here and the URL for the data set, the public data set over here, which is basically the proof that how where the data set is pulled from. Apart from that, the dataset was saved as taxi rights. Now, since it's a massive dataset, I cannot directly ingest all of it to Power BI or feed it to Power BI for visualization. So I needed to perform few operations, which I did in the initial EDAs. That is, I have done in the EDA documents, and here it is. I had to basically initially it is understand the data set. So you can see it's a massive 76 million rows. That's a big data set. Uh, so I found the data, basically the type of data, data types, and what all was missing, dealt with the null values, removed null values, and eventually all the processing, pre-processing, and everything after that, I had to split the data set into two sub data sets, which I've fed into Power BI, or which I used in Power BI desktop application for making the um, dashboard. So those sub data sets or sub tables were taxi rights cleaned and taxi rights zone stats. Now, taxi ride clean basically has almost all columns, which were almost all columns, and what we've omitted is rows with null value. So there were like there is a column named, just a sec, location. There is a column named with location ID. Yeah, do location ID. So if there were any null do location ID in any rows, we've skipped those rows because those rows didn't have much of values, important values. So I dropped those rows and I got the important data or required data for visualization. So eventually these two tables were turned into delta tables, which were eventually used uh, in Power BI application for creating dashboards. Next, I'll show you how I connected my Power BI with how I connected Fabric with Power BI. Now there were two options here. So you can basically go to One Lake catalog and easily go to, I know it's a warehouse data lake, or sorry, it's a data lakehouse. So just select lakehouse. And when you do that, this dialog box comes in. Now, if you've not logged in before, I had to put in my credentials, like my unique credentials to log in. And when I logged in, I already have my Max Lakehouse ready here, and I connect to it. And then you can see it's establishing a network, basically connection. And these are my tables: taxi rides, taxi drop off, whatever I need, zones, stats, and taxi. These two tables are which I basically used. The other tables were used in the process, but I didn't use them for data visualize or making the dashboard here. Another way you can connect is get data on this tab, go to more, and Microsoft Fabric. Again, it is Lakehouse. And when you connect, again, it might ask you for this, and then the same process. Connect your data lakehouse, and that's it. So using Microsoft Fabric, I was able to ingest my public data set to my private lakehouse, and further was able to connect with my Power BI desktop app to create this simple, easy data dashboard. It was enriching and a new learning experience. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.